I share this with you? Good evening, everyone. Good evening. We're going to begin, but it's make sure that everyone's had an opportunity to get settled. So my name is Addie City Council members. I chair Budget and Finance, and I am joined this evening by my dear friend and colleague, Hamilton County Auditor Bridget Kelly, and your Community Council President, Carrie Devereaux. And I did say the last name. And also I want to give a huge shout out to Ms. Angela Pearson. And everyone give us a round of applause for Ms. Angela Pearson because she is a huge advocate for the community of Madisonville and a big reason why we are having this meeting this evening. So I want to do two things before we jump into the presentation to help all of us ground like why we are here and what we are hoping to accomplish. About 6 months ago, Ms. Pearson called a group of community we had a meeting at the library here, and we discussing the real impacts that development on Madisonville. And what was expressed really clearly was that there were a number of long-term residents, what we call legacy residents, especially Black residents, who had the experience of being pushed out of the community because of development. And the question was, what is happening? What are you doing at the city to provide resources for folks who have been in the community, want to stay in the community, who we benefit from all of this development? And we were specifically talking about our work around tax abatement. So the real crux of this meeting is to talk about the new residential tax abatement, what it is, has been designed. Also hear from the Hamilton County Auditor, because the Auditor's Office plays a significant and very specific role in the residential tax abatement process, and that's often something that gets left out of the residential tax abatement process. So that's the context for this meeting, and that's what we're hoping to accomplish. The second thing I wanted to talk about is ongoing work to impact property tax impacts in our state. And so when we go through the presentation, we'll talk about the things that we can do at the city and the things that we can't do. But I want to bring to your attention 3 opportunities for advocacy that I really want is a call to action from the community. So right now in the state legislature, there are 2 bills that are looking to amend what is the homestead tax exemption program. So for those of you who may not be familiar, right now, if you are 65 years or older, if you're on a fixed income or at a particular salary income that's sort of mid to low, you can apply to get $25,000 of your home value abated through the homestead program. So that's an existing program that exists, right? In a Democratic bill. The Republican bill wants to increase the eligibility for the tax exemption by increasing the income cap. So right now, I'm making this number up. Let's say you make $40,000 a year. They want to increase it to $60,000 a year to be able to capture more people, right? The Democratic bill wants to do that and increase the amount of property tax value that can be abated up to $40,000. Our office will make sure to send out the information about these bills. So this is your opportunity to go to your state rep. This will be a huge benefit to legacy homeowners in the city of Cincinnati who are on fixed income, who are mid to low income, because at the city level, we actually don't have the jurisdiction to change property tax abatements outside of the current program. So those are two chances to weigh in. The third piece is actually really exciting. It is a project and it's an enabling legislation. And so what they're doing, they're trying to get the state legislature to say, allow individual cities to design abatement programs for senior citizens, moderate to fixed income homeowners to be responsive to their communities. So what this bill would do, right now it has bipartisan support, but it isn't actually a bill yet. But again, this is an opportunity for you to weigh in and we'll see information. So this bill will then allow the city of Cincinnati to say, okay, how do we design an abatement program that is targeted towards fixed income, mid to low income communities with other parameters, right? So I bring that up to say, there are things we can do at the city. There are things, our office is fully tapped into all of these efforts, and we do sort of monthly updates with the Cincinnati delegation, also with the Republican delegation, to just let them know we want this legislation to impact our city. Okay, so what we did at the city of Cincinnati, so we can actually, we know that we had a residential tax abatement program that had, and I'm gonna put to the side here, this had a disproportionate given to the east side of the state and more wealthy and affluent area because of housing programs, right? So one of the things that we campaigned on, the mayor and his council was updating the program. What we did, I just want us to so property tax abatement is essentially just the reduction of the amount of property tax you pay on new construction or improvement. New York property taxes are calculated for a land value, and then as the value property increases, right, the property taxes increase. And then also you charge the property. There's levies that we here, right? So we have of the various levies that we have and the percentages of your property tax that go to those. What are we paying? Of your property. So let's go to the next. And again, the property values are in loading, right? And so the process in which your value is set in that timing, right? And then let's go back. And then when you think about like property value, improvements to the neighborhood, but location, even sometimes a community that's next to a highway and the highway, because now more people could even be a factor, right? So there's go into the value of your home. Why do cities have property tax? So we 67%. In the city of Cincinnati, we have covered between 37 and 39%. Right. And so we have these moments of, you know, up and down and up and down. Like, you know, usually city. The reason why that is this. So the more people who live here and work here, the more money we have to pay our bills. It's just a very simple equation. And so because Cincinnati, Montgomery, and just a lot of people may choose to go there. They pay a lower property tax over they still get all of the benefits of the city. Right? The people who live in the city not just get all the benefits of Cincinnati, but they don't get everything. So we're trying to incentivize you to say, well, instead of living in the city, live in the city, we'll give you the basement, right, to incentivize you. So that's the economic development tool that I use about this right? But there are state law requirements that allow that for the city, right? Keep going. So for example, like parameters, right? So we had a lot of advocacy to increase the abatement period to 20 years. Right now, the cap is 15 years. We should increase it to 20 years, but we can't. State legislature says you can only do 15 years. We had advocacy that said we should lower the minimum amount that the abatement. So right now, single family home is 2,500. 3-unit, 4-unit, it is $5,000. People say you should lower it to 1,000, lower it to 750. Again, state law dictates that 2,500 for a single family, or 3 and 4 units. So we also, in our old system, we had some administrative stuff that was really kind of wacky and take things. And frankly, the paper application was incredibly difficult to fill out. And so there was a business that sort of structure managers or in the real estate that they figured out how to do it. And so if you would buy a house to use their services, they would install it. Actually cool in old application. Worked in nonprofit. To figure it out, right? So yeah, updated the application to be simpler for you to be able to do it online. It will make the $250 application fee for folks who are, like I said, on big stuff. Right? And so here's how the program works. So to pull a permit. So this is a thing that's really important. A lot of don't realize that their house to pull a permit. Pulling a permit triggers the ability to get it, right? It's approved, and then there's the assessment of the value, and then the auditor will go into that process, right? What we can't say as a city is what is going to be to your house. We have a rough idea, but again, that's how it. But we know some things, for example, like if your roof leaks or repairing your driveway, even if you do the nicest version of those things, those are generally considered routine maintenance in others. So you most likely not installation work. But like if you add it to a bathroom or you take a tap pad, you have a things that add value. the county auditor's office to share with you this data. So we're going to get. Program. We're talking about the because that is the program that's run through the state of Ohio. So you have to apply to the state of Ohio for that. For the home.
Would be,
I don't know. Here's what we did with the residential tax data program. 2020, there was a property tax working group that was looking at this. Then fall of 20, council appropriated money. HRNA advisors, they also worked with the city of Columbus, did a study for us, and they presented those findings back to us. And they recommended that we do what is called a 3-tier system. We're going to talk about this. So the tier system is important because in our old payment process, it was just citywide, right? Any place you bought a house in the city, there was no, you didn't do it exactly the same. And we recognize that was not experience moved into a 3-tier system. The second thing that we also when you go back to is really important. So remember earlier when I was talking about that some parts of the city had or payments and other parts of the city. Here's what we learned in the but the amount of permits for construction were almost equal throughout the city. So what we learned was it wasn't that just one side of the city was doing construction on their homes or on their home. It was happening citywide. Like a barrier for many residents. So that's why you saw people. So even though we revamped the administrative process, just to make sure that that is not a barrier. You get a question going, I mean, we'll Councilman Goldman, but it was just, you said the maximum is 2 days, right? Reduce length of greatness to neighborhoods, markets, and the maximum so and those. I'm trying to figure out how that. So it's early talking about you. How is that possible if the tax dollars are being you use the tax dollars for that the general community is generating? So how is that possible when into the community? Because if you look around the neighborhoods, you look at the report of the NAACP that lower education to people the possible maybe how they get so I'll say 2 things. We will get to the nuts and bolts framework of how this happens, but to your point, and this is also a very important point, residential that are not the tools that happen with banks and loans and folks not being able to buy and sell their house. Residential things that we're going to solve in terms of people being able to access capital and stay in their work. But the impacts of gentrification in which people feel forced to displace their communities, there are other tools in our toolbox and other settings of frequency that solve that. And resident tax abatement piece is a small portion of it. So there's three criteria. So when you said we put our city into three tiers, right? We were thinking about for the neighborhood, the six criteria are average household income, mortgage applications approved and originated, right? That's the word, approved and originated, market value change, and new construction. So go back. So think of this six criteria. If a neighborhood can check four or more of this criteria, four or more, he said that was a sustained neighborhood. That's a sustained neighborhood. If you have four is low, housing value is there's a high amount of mortgage applications approved and originated, market change is high, new construction. It's an economically sound neighborhood, right? That's what we're saying for more. If you can do, if you check 2 to 3, or let's say 4 more, so let's say 3 to 4. Still 4 of these checked. And that's a expand neighborhood. Some things are happening in that neighborhood. It's still opportunity for. If you check only 1 or 2 of these, then we said that's the those are the neighborhoods that need the most incentive. And so we designated this list. Let's go to the next slide. And so when you divide the city into the lift, expand, and sustain, you can kind of see the geography that really much of our city and our city neighborhoods qualify in that lift category, right? Only needing 1 or 2. Then we had a sort of medium amount of neighborhoods in that expand, and then a small cluster of communities in sustain. And so here and there are listed out as well, and we can send this out. The lift neighborhoods, and so many people would say, like, okay, how is North Avondale in the lift neighborhood? If you know this currently, you can still pockets of a neighborhood that are really strong economically, but then think about neighborhood in their totality. There's still communities that may have it's, but are the entire neighborhood isn't. So that's something that we're thinking about. Okay, so how did we change? So here's how we changed. We said, if you are applying for this community, you're for remodeling, because we also wanted to incentivize remodel versus new construction. And the reason why in our old program, you got more money if you tore down a house and built a new house. And so many neighbors were just talking about, oh God, like, let's tear them down, build a new house, and they're getting more money for it. They were incentivized to do that. You got more money to do that, right? So we wanted to incentivize the behavior that we wanted. So for remodeling, new construction, in 15 years, it's down for the remodel. That's from the new construction, right? And so the arrows show and more from the program. If you were in the expand neighborhood, and for remodel, you got 12 years, so incentivizing remodel. And then for value, you get more for. So you see, and under our program, you get the most amount of the basic value in the list. In same neighborhoods, we went really drastically low. We said in the sustained neighborhoods for remodel, we could max 8 years instead of 12, right? The improvement for remodeling, we did more, we went up $50,000. Those neighborhoods is where we're seeing a lot of the tear downs and reconstruction. We wanted to incentivize the behaviors that we wanted. I think we had less years for reconstruction. And then we said, okay, you know, we have a Green Cincinnati plan. The city of Cincinnati has been leading in really work. We still wanted people to use, you know, the best and most green over the first, but we also know that so you can do eco, right? You can do and may not require the same amount. The added incentives for visibility and universal design. Both are when you made your home, you go to a lot ready to. Preservation, right, as well. So, and then we also added an incentive for doing two. Ecosystem, okay. So, and then we did the, okay. Let's talk about this, let's get it enhanced. So now you can go in. There is a portal application, you can see where you are, your neighborhood. Do your application online, you can apply to have the waive. And there is also located in the Department of Community and Economic Experience, help you through the process. I'll say, we'll turn it over to that. Also, here's what's important. We're just not going to pass and say, okay, did our job, yay. Next, we want to look at the impact of neighborhoods in a 3-year period. The reason why we chose 3 years is because the data in the research said 3 years allowed that. And to say, are they working? They're not working, right? We don't want to just have. Let's move through that. This is I wanted everyone to sort of have to be like grounded in where we were, why we made changes that we made, and here. And then now I can turn it over to our esteemed county auditor, Bridget Kelly, and so she will talk about the auditor's office and the process of voting.
Thank you. Quickly, we have to save a lot of time and questions. And so that I have a great was shared by yourself. I apologize. Do you want to go to the next one? About our office, talk about. And then a little bit about our website resources and. One of the things, and the officers is County Auditor Board. Chief Financial Officer. Treasurer and a representative. We have. Which I will talk more in depth about. One about the homestead exemption. Owner occupied tax credit. Two about the appraisal policy. And myself, somebody told me. Get back to me, so whether it's about.
Sorry.
Some of the other things. At the gas station, we make sure your meat is found at the grocery. Talk a little slow, I'm trying to get. I was slow. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And so let me do this by statute. So one of the things Councilmember Harris talked about was a legislature and its role in different things like that. So I always joke that if you see what they give it to the auditor's office, which is why we have such a responsibilities. Now, there are some things for which we are not responsible. Can't do everything. So we administer the functions that are set forth for us. A legislature. So our office is largely administrative. We are allowed. A legislature tells us what we are allowed to do. Nothing less. We get a lot of questions about collecting people's property taxes. That is the tax bill payment plan. We do not. That doesn't look like it's correct on your website at hamiltoncountyauditor.org. What you have to do is get a new deed prepared and you go to the county recorder's office. And say, hey, I want to put up a fence. It's got a tree growing in my yard. Do you have a survey for us? We do not. That's the county engineer. And as you know from this conversation tonight, we also get a lot of questions about abatements. So that is your local political subdivision. Our role in abatements is to administer whatever program local municipalities put forward. So the city of Cincinnati, for example, would come to us and say, hey, we made this new abatement program. These are the new rules. So once people apply for and are granted an abatement by that political subdivision, we make note of that. Like the property taxes on your property. So the auditor's office works in values. We do not work in taxes. So, and there's a lot on here. So the value, how does the value impact the calculation of taxes owed? So property taxes are based on value. And value is part of the way that your property taxes are collected, but it's not the that they are calculated. So tax revenue happens when there's new construction. It happens when voters choose in what they want to invest. So if you pass a new levy.
I'm just worried about,
I'm just worried about the auditor's voice and straining her voice.
Oh, is this any better or is this still better or worse? Thank you, Councilmember Harris. This would be the first time I lost any volume in my life, so let's not make this the first time. So one thing that I will say is that an increase in the fair market value of your property does not necessarily translate into a one-to-one increase in your property taxes. So if you own a property and it goes up by 5% in value, for example, that does not mean your property taxes will go up by 5%. The way that levies work in the state of Ohio is that there's what's called a windfall provision. And so when communities vote to pass levies and invest in the things that are important to them, levies are designed to generate a certain amount of resources and only a certain amount of resources. So there are times when property values can go up and property taxes can go up. There are times when property values can go up and property taxes can go down. There are times when property values can go down and property taxes can go up because levies are designed to generate a specific amount of money. Do you want to go to the next slide? Thank you. So Hamilton County this year is in the middle of a full reappraisal process. So the state of Ohio directs us, one, to do a full reappraisal every 6 years. They, two, tell us how they want to do the full appraisal every 6 years. And three, they approve our values. So again, like we talked about in the beginning, the auditor's office is largely administrative. We are essentially an agent of the state. So what we do is we use, as directed by the state, a mass appraisal process. So this is a little bit different than if you were going to get an appraisal to sell your house, for example. So what we do is we try to compare apples to apples and similar properties to one another. And I'm going to show you a great tool on our website, hamiltoncountyauditor.org, where you can see the different properties to which yours is compared. So we compare it to roughly about 20 other properties. And we do this for all of Hamilton County's 350,000 plus parcels. And I will take a moment to brag on our staff. So we are probably the most similar in size and in property parcel count to Franklin County. Franklin County Auditor's Office has a staff of 142 people. Montgomery County and Dayton, their Auditor's Office has a staff of 105 people. Hamilton County is bigger than them. Our team at the Auditor's Office is 72 people who are working hard every day to make sure that we do work that is transparent, that is accurate, and that is equitable. So we have a really great team who looks for of service to you. So this is our timeline. And so I'm actually really excited about the timing of this meeting because we are sending out what's called tentative value notices. So if you own a commercial property, you may have already gotten this in the mail. If you own residential property, you'll probably get it in the mail at the end of June or at the beginning of July. And so you'll get a notice and it'll say, this is what we think your property is worth. If you think that we are right on, that we did a great job, that we are spot on, then you don't have to do anything. If you think that we are off, that we've valued your property either too high or too low, you'll see instructions on that postcard and information for what you can send us to say, hey, we'd like for you to take another look at this because we think that you are a little bit off. So you can provide us that information either on our website at hamiltoncountyauditor.org, or you can send it to us in the mail and a member of our real estate team will take a look at it. So we'll start to get those on residential properties again, probably end of June or beginning of July. They'll actually be going out in 3 waves. If for some reason by mid-July, if you own a property, a residential property, and you don't have that tentative value notice, give us a call or send us an email through our website at hamiltoncountyauditor.org. and we'll be happy to follow up with you. So what I was talking about in terms of that information, that's called the informal review process. And so an example of some of the examples of some of the things you can send into us as recent sales of similar properties, a recent appraisal of your property. Remember, we talked about how we have to use the mass appraisal process. Other people hire private appraisers to value their property. That's something that you can provide to us. Or, issues that maybe we can't see because of the way that the state directs us to do this mass appraisal process. So you can send all of that to us. And so again, members of our real estate team will take another look at that, and that will take us through fall of 2023. Then we go to the state and we say, this is what we think. Do you agree? And the state can either say, yes, we think you're right on, or no, we think you're high, or no, we think you're low. Now, I will give you a guess about who's going to win the battle between the Hamilton County Auditor's Office and the state, because generally what the state says rules. There's a few pieces of legislation talking about how to value properties in a triennial, but that's different than what we're doing here in Hamilton County. So you will be notified of your final valuation at the end of 2023. So if you disagree with that final valuation, then you can go through the Board of Revision process, and we'll talk about that. That's another way for you to say, I think you're off. Yes, ma'am. So the state of Ohio directs us to use, sorry about that. The state of Ohio directs us to use the mass appraisal approach. And so again, like with the homestead program, unfortunately in the auditor's office, we're not allowed to say, we don't like this and we want to do it another way. The state legislature has to direct us and tell us that we can do it a different way. And right now, this is the process that's set out for us in statute and in administrative code. I would recommend talking with your state rep and with your state senator about this and a whole host of other things, including the homestead exemption, which we'll talk about in a minute. So these are some of the tools that are available to you as property owners. So if you get that final valuation notice in the winter and you disagree with it, you can go through the Board of Revision process. So you can visit our website at hamiltoncountyauditor.org, click on Board of Revision, and there will be instructions on there for how to file with the board. And again, the Board of Revision is set up, and so it is representatives of our office, the commissioner's office, as well as the treasurer's office. The important thing about the Board of Revision, you must file between January 1st and March 31st. Again, you must file between January 1st and March 31st. That means that your application for the Board of Revision must be postmarked by March 31st. So again, that's if you get that final valuation notice, you'll continue to get updates on it. You can see up there that there's a status report and things like that. So again, this is all public information, public process, public meetings, very transparent. So this is one of the tools that is available on our website. So you can see the sales to which your house is being compared as we go through this mass appraisal process. So you visit our website at hamiltoncountyauditor.org, you click on property summary, and there is a link to sales in the appraisal area box. So you look up your address, go to the appraisal area, click on sales, and you'll be able to see the different properties to which yours is being compared. So that is a really helpful tool. Would you mind to go to the next slide? Thank you. Beyond that, you can also see all of the different things that we do in our office, whether it's homestead, the CAUV, if you have agricultural property, rental registrations, dog licensing. We have files that are publicly available because, again, we feel really strongly about making public information easily available to the public. So I'm actually going to take 1 second to talk some more about the homestead exemption. Definitely. I was like,
First, I want to congratulate you on your appointment.
Thank you.
and the great work you're gonna do for us here in Hamilton County.
Thank you.
But secondly, any assessment that you're just expound on to the community, whereas you notice from just your observation in this room, you have a lot of people who may be over 65 or more, and everybody is not computer savvy. And I know you keep saying go to HamiltonCountyAuditors.org. I got it. But is there some way that Hamilton County can actually send some of the forms that you're talking about out with the assessment for those who you deem, you know, like not, you're 65 and over, who may not be as computer savvy as someone like myself or younger? You know, everybody's not a tech head.
That is a great question. So I will answer that a couple ways. One, that is something that the auditor's office did in the past, and we were advised that we were not permitted to do that. The homestead exemption, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the homestead exemption, and this data is a little bit old, but essentially what the homestead exemption does is it gives you a credit on your property taxes that you otherwise would have paid on the first $25,000. So right now, the income limitation for the homestead exemption is $36,100 per household, which in my opinion is woefully inadequate to accomplish what it wants to. There's a handle over there for the homestead exemption. When you apply for the homestead exemption with our office, you also have to furnish us with a number of different, verification of income, things like that. If you're fully disabled, we need information about that. But our staff is awesome and is happy to help walk people through that. So again, we have information request forms up here. People can call our office at 513-946-4000. 513-946-4000. If you're interested in the homestead exemption, we can mail you the application and also talk to you about what else needs to be provided for that. We can also do that for owner occupied. We can do it for vendor licenses. We can do it for whatever.
Did you say that 36,000, if you make over that, you can't get homestead?
Over $36,100, you generally do not qualify for homestead. And you can see on our website, if you go to that property summary tab, if you have access to the internet, I'll read to you 1 second, sir.
Anne has
Yep.
nine, so we'll do one and then we'll do two.
Thank you, thank you. So you can see if you're getting the homestead exemption currently or the owner occupied. So if you're not sure, you can check that out. Also, if you're not sure, you can call us at 513-946-4000 and we can work through that with you. But again, both of those programs, the owner occupied as well as a homestead exemption, are state programs that are administered by the auditor's office. So we don't have any flexibility really in terms of that. Did I answer all the parts of your question? Okay.
My question is, you keep referring to the, your property, my property. So it determines the taxes that I will pay. So are you saying that the property, the surrounding properties that are $300,000, $400,000 and the complexes that are $23,000, $2,300 a month for rent, and all of those new developments have no bearing on my home taxes? Are you saying that?
So commercial properties are compared to commercial properties, residential compared to residential. So for example, if you have, a property and you have access to our website, you can click on that sales link and see exactly to what your property is being compared.
So again, say for instance, I don't know how to go on the website.
Yeah.
I'm just asking you,
Yeah.
are surrounding properties, do they have, is what I need to say, do they have an effect on my property?
Yes, ma'am, they do. The properties around you will have an impact, again, because the state of Ohio directs us to use that mass appraisal process. So it's not like we're going into every single one of the 350,000 properties in Hamilton County. We frankly don't have the resources.
And that's a two-part, because a lot of the homes have those 15-year, 10-year abatements. So who's paying? Am I carrying them? Yes.
So what I will say is, again, the way that levies are passed is to guarantee to generate a certain amount of money. And whether that money comes from 20 houses or 2,000 houses, it will generate. So if you pass a levy for 100 that says, we're gonna generate $100 for the parks, whether it's 10 houses or 1,000 houses, we will generate that $100 for the parks.
No, she sure did get in there. She did.
So the answer to that question is, it's not it's a nuanced answer. So here's what happens. You say you're in your house and the 3 houses next to you have an abatement, right? And let's say we are in the reassessment year, we've reassessed those values and property values are up. The houses next to you are only, their taxes are only abated on the increase in the value, right? The increase in the value, not the full value of their house. So they're still paying taxes. Let me just walk through it because it's a complicated thing. It's a great question. Not the full property, right? But the abated value. Where you see the fluctuation and increase and it is true, as a neighbor, you might take more of a hit in your taxes, is when she was saying about the levy. So at the levy will say, we have to collect $30 million. So regardless if property values are sky high or property values are low, we're going to adjust the rate to make sure that we are able to collect that money. So it's hard to just say, if this house is increased by 5% and this house increases by 5%, then my property value is going to go up and then I'm going to pay more in taxes because those houses have the abatement. The one-to-one math doesn't work in that way, which I know is an unsatisfying answer. Oh, got it, right. So you're saying, okay, so this new house is worth $500,000. It's $400,000 of it is abated because it's a new construction. And then am I paying so no, the reason why is that money is foregone revenue to the city. Right, it's not a spread out like, oh, this $400,000 of taxes are abated, therefore the rest of us are carrying it. The city, that is the money that goes to the city is foregone. So we take the hit on that so that when the property rolls off the abatement, to be able to collect more. So it is not passed to your neighbor, it's foregone to the city. So that's how the abatement piece works. I know many people say, well, if you get an abatement, and you're not paying all your property tax, someone has to be carrying it. The city takes that hit. Because when that property rolls off abatements, we are then able to get more money. So your property tax will rise for all of those other various things that the auditor talked about. Right? Not necessarily because of the abatement, but because of the levies, but because of just the increased value of the neighborhood. Yeah, your taxes would be more expensive because you're in a neighborhood of more value. Yes. Yes, yeah, so we are. Because it's in the neighborhood that has increased, yes, absolutely, yes. And so, and then we'll go to, but here's also the challenge, right? The premise of the American dream, right, is this idea that you buy a house, it increases in value. You're either able to sell your house or you're able to pass it down, right? So that's the premise of the American dream. The challenge, and this is why you have things like the homestead exemption, and what we're trying to do is that when you may be on a fixed income or you're not able to shoulder the increase in that value, how do we make sure people aren't priced out? And so that's always the challenge over the system that we're in. So let's go to the next question. Yeah, someone over here, yeah.
You're doing? Okay, so I got one question for each one of y'all, please. So, Mr. Harris, are you here today as an agent of the city, of the state, or as a representative of the people?
As an elected official from the city of Cincinnati, I'm a representative of the people.
But you're here today as an agent of the state with things that.
I'm a city council member and I'm explaining to you legislation that we have passed to govern the city. So here, and also I'm here in good faith. I'm here open, I'm here to communicate, and there's no ulterior agenda. So when you say agent of the city, that paints a tone that I don't think is fair.
Okay, well,
So I'm here representing the people because you elected me.
well, of course, but you represent the city. I understand that point. So are you here as an agent or a representation of the people?
I was elected to represent all of the people in Hamilton County. And so that's why we try to work hard in our office to be transparent and accurate and available to folks.
Okay, so that being said, so since you stepped into your position, all the monies that's been stolen from our parents and our grandparents, with you being the auditor, have you taken time to look back and see how we are able to remedy this without adding some more stuff to it? Because I would imagine that it would have to be accountability before we able to move on to something new. If we know that the tax abatement program was against all of us that own property in the past, including our parents and our grandparents, why would you come up with a new program before the old program people has been held accountable for what has been done to us? Because we lag behind because it's evident, it's clear evidence. If nobody knows, it's a Robert Newman lawsuit against the city for this very thing that we're talking about here today, of years and years of unfairness, of thievery, of economic terrorism, and all of these things. And now we're trying to we being underhanded with some more things. I would advise everybody in this room to go and read the Robert Newman lawsuit, because whatever deals they're trying to put on the table.
So, sir, I'm gonna cut you off there because here's no, because this is crossing into an area in which that's not the spirit of this conversation. There's a lawsuit with the city of Cincinnati, and you are all free to read the lawsuit and to come to your own conclusions. What we have done, and for me as an elected official, under the purview and the guidance that I have within my power, is to address what we can address, right? So I cannot go back and rewrite what has happened before, but what we can do is that we can look at policy and say, how can we make it as equitable and work as best as possible for all people, which is what we are doing in good faith, right? And this is the work, and this is the part of the transparency. So is this to deny that Black people have been historically discriminated against?
We haven't been given,
Sir,
we're
not gonna do this. Yes, that has happened, that is real.
so who's been held accountable?
But the point is this, sir, that is a point of advocacy. There is a point of advocacy that are numerous people who are working at the national level around redlining and payment and reparations. There are numerous people locally who are doing this work now. The fairness that we are able to enact in the city of Cincinnati is by reforming existing legislation that has had a negative impact. And that is what we're doing. And we are at this point here. Either you accept that and believe that in whole faith, or you don't. And then you have to proceed in the way you do. But there's nothing that I can say or do in this position to address the thing that you want me to address, because that's not where my power exists. My power exists in righting the wrongs, and this is an attempt at doing that.
But have you read the Robert Newman lawsuit?
So I'm not gonna count, I cannot comment on any lawsuit, but so this is not a forum for you to talk about the Newman lawsuit. Right, next question, who do you have? There's a gentleman right here. Okay. And we'll help you.
Madam,
There you go.
okay, first of all, the tax abated properties need to be, they're overvalued to begin with, okay? They need to be taken out of the mix when we do our formula, when we revalue. Right now, you take the high and the low, and you go to a neighborhood. We need to take all the tax abated properties out of the mix, okay? One thing. Second thing, vacant properties today can get a 100% tax abatement on the improved value. So what these people are doing, they're finding vacant lots in Madisonville and in other neighborhoods, and they're paying on the land. They're paying $500 to $700 on a year on a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 house. That's almost criminal in my mind.
Yes, yes.
Third thing, if a multifamily unit gets a tax abatement, they should be required to keep the rent affordable during the term of the abatement. If they're going to apply for an abatement, they should be guaranteed. If they don't agree to keep the rent affordable, they should lose the tax abatement.
That's right.
And finally, CFT, our union, our teachers union, they're right now are collecting signatures to eliminate all the tax abatements in Cincinnati. Cincinnati Public Schools is bigger than Cincinnati. I think it's gonna pass. I think we're gonna eliminate them all myself. But if you can't take them out of the mix, at least to the 50%, I think nobody should get more than a 50% tax abated property to me. That would be a major change. But these issues need to be addressed. Because you got people like the lady just talked about here, you know, somebody's next door to her has got a new house and they're paying $500, $600 in property taxes on. And then you got somebody on a fixed income or a disabled person paying 5, 6 times more in property taxes.
Right.
This is not fair. So that's where we're all coming from, I believe. So,
Well, I'm gonna respond to a couple of those things that follow up. So from the auditor's office, again, we don't make abatement policy. We only apply abatement policy that has been passed by local policymakers. We do not, we are supposed to implement the abatement policy of your elected officials. That is our job. We are not a policymaking arm of government. We are not a policymaking arm of government. And again, the state directs us about how to embark in the mass appraisal process. And ultimately, it's up to the Department of Tax. You did this the right way, you did this the wrong way. I mean, we could go to the state and say, we think value is 3% less, and the state could say, we think everybody's value is 3% more. We could go to the state and say, we think everybody's value is 3% more, and the state could say, we think everybody's value is 5% less. So again, it's trying to work with the partners that we have at the state who are few and far between in order to try to remedy some of this.
Yeah. Appreciate your point. So I think a couple points that I think we talked about and we covered at the beginning of this meeting. So when you talked about the way that housing should be appraised. You shouldn't be able to do high or you shouldn't be able to do low. Again, as the auditor said, that's set by the state. So that's a very fair point. But if anything that we can take away from this meeting, that there are points of advocacy that you can direct towards us, towards the city. And then there are points of advocacy that you have to direct towards the state, right? And I think what happens is that there's this thing and you have these impacts and you're like, you have to fix it. We will absolutely look at the things that we can control, but in terms of like how the appraisals happen, as we said multiple times, it's at the state. Also, I have to also say that there's just like there's a fundamental sort of clash in terms of abatements and how we use them and what we use them with, right? And so the idea of the abatements and capping folks rents at 80% AMI, because depending on the value, what is the new construction versus the remodel, the value of the abatement doesn't always correspond to a significant in rent that you can say, okay, well, because I received this $70,000 abatement or $100,000 abatement over 15 years, I can then subsidize or cap the rent at 30% or 40%. The math doesn't work out in that way in that one-to-one. The abatement policy really is about driving individual home ownership. Now, we have other tools at the city that we can use. So for example, the way that I would incentivize the place that you want to get to the gentleman here is that you purchase a 2-3 family, you invest in it, you get an abatement, and then you purchase maybe a second 2-3 family, you work with CDF to get a residential or commercial loan, then you're able to have subsidy there. Like we have tools for investors who want to say, hey, I want to provide subsidized housing and subsidized income. We have those other tools there to be able to do that. So it's not that it's an either or, but there are other pathways there. All right, we have some more questions. The next question is back here. Oh, okay. And then we're going to go to the gentleman in neon because he has had his hand up forever. And then we have 2 questions here in the front. We'll see you. Yes.
Now, I understand the way that they're assessing the property values in the city now. I don't know how we're doing it, but my property value at the point was $35,000 and now went all the way up to $205,000. Now you tell me, what are you all doing for that to be assessed that way?
I'm happy to take that because is it a commercial property, ma'am, or residential?
It's commercial,
Okay.
but still, you know, I would think that it should be improvements. There's no improvements being done around there. I have made none. So for them to raise it from 35 to 205,000, and you say that it don't necessarily mean that I pay taxes on that amount, but anytime you have, that's what the levies are based on.
No, you will pay taxes on the value of the house, but it's not necessarily a one-to-one. So I would say, did you get your your postcard in the mail?
Is it right here?
Yeah.
That states that.
With the list of the different things that you can provide to us if you think that your property is valued incorrectly?
Yeah, they told me I could take pictures and this sort of thing, but still, I'm not gonna be able to bring it all the way down, even to 100,000. You're talking about $205,000, and they're based on other commercial property. I don't know what type of improvement that they're basing it on the other properties, unless they went in there and they really redone all of the property, you know, all the projects in there or whatever. But I don't think it's right for them to say, okay, state says, okay, we can use this process to evaluate the properties and all of that, but it shouldn't be about that. It should be about what my property is actually worth and the condition of the thing.
So let me follow up. I will say the state doesn't say that we can, the state says that we must. that we will, so we don't have an option on that, but I would really encourage you, if you think that your value is incorrect, to provide us some of the things on that letter, so we can have somebody else on our staff take another look at it and see, maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong. This is an important part of the process as a property owner, whether you're commercial or residential, for you to check our work. And we send out those postcards as a courtesy in order to be transparent with the people that we are serving. There are some counties in the state that are like, hey, you'll know your value when you get your tax bill, but that's not how we do business here in Hamilton County. Sorry, thank you. If you wouldn't mind to fill out one of these information requests up here, I can take a look at your specific property and have somebody on our team get back to you.
And then I just want to add really quickly. So again, first of all, thank you for your question, but I want to add just two things to be very specific, right? So we talked about, but that came up twice, is that the system of appraising using the surrounding properties feels absolutely completely unfair. And it's like, it's really impacting people's lives. Again, so my call to charge is like that, take that to your state rep, take that to your state legislator. Like that's the space where it will change. Bridget can't do anything differently and we can't do anything differently at the city. Right. And I'm just gonna say this, that's always a frustrating thing to say as an elected official, because we're supposed to be like, we have the solutions, but they're just real things in which our hands are tied, right? And so that's why I started at the beginning talking about what's happening at the state, what's happening at the county, so that we can uniformly work together. But if we can have these great ideas, but if I can't enact that change, then we're going to sit in a cycle of frustration. Yeah. So let's do this, gentlemen, and then we'll come back.
What alternatives are out there for us that are over 65? Is it only the Homestead Act? You know, our property values are going up, and my other alternative is I had a fire where my house was completely redone. So where is that going to put me? Am I in the new bracket or am I in the remodel bracket, or what do I have?
So I will let the auditor talk about the fire, but the reality is, and that is a great question, yes, if you are over 65, the only resource in terms of property tax relief is the homestead tax exemption program. Oh, that's not true. Ooh, wrong. Sorry, you take this one.
So there's more than that.
So the homestead exemption is one option.
Yeah.
If you own and occupy your house, you may be eligible for the owner occupied tax credit. So I would grab that paper up there. And so that can give you a property tax credit of up to 2.5%. So if you grab that handle up there or fill out the information request, we to the application for that to make sure that you're on there. And while you're at it, since we'll have your address, will you just write a note on there for us, and I'll have one of our real estate team members take a look at it, so that way we can make sure to get you the most accurate information on your particular parcel property.
Right?
Here.
I guess.
First of all, thank you. A lot of you folks know me, they're basically sitting here for a minute. I have a lot of questions. First and foremost, we are 6 generations of residents in the Madisonville area. We are 6 generations in Madisonville. Went to Madisonville School. With Rose and Anthony, most of us here have gone to church out here. So this is one of my first meetings, so I apologize if I'm behind. My mother turned 98 today, okay? My question is, I know because I'm also in healthcare and I've worked in the different communities where all of the new construction is going. And something that I've noticed is primarily it is lower income communities.
That, I mean, it is what it is. You know, Avondale, Walnut Hills, Madisonville. So, and most of those areas, again, me being in healthcare for 40 years, I've noticed, one, is lower income, no disrespect to anybody's income, and it's also primarily people of color. Because of that, those areas were also awarded a quite large sum of money for improvement to bring, whether it's incentivization, whether it's business, whatever it is, into those communities. My question is how much of that money, and like I said, I'll work at all of them, was actually used first, since it was granted on the backs of the residents of those communities and their economic level. Please let me finish. And their economic level, that's how the money came to the community. Like I said, my mom is 98. I have a house in Madisonville, I moved back. But my question is not once when all of this started, when the Family Dollar closed, and okay, my mother was younger then, and there's other elderly folks here, their parents are here too. You know, that was the exercise she would get, but then that was moved. I've heard different things as to why I don't really care about that part. That's not important. But how much of that money on the front end was, hey, Madisonville, Avondale, Evanston, wherever, we're going to set this money aside for the folks that are already out here who have been committed to these same areas that are now being built to bring people in, to bring more money into the county, the city, or whatever. How much of that was set aside? How many meetings was it like this to say, you know what, if you've been here 5 years or longer, 10 years or longer, there's a grant bucket of money right here that if you meet this criteria, we can help you put your roof on. We can help you fix your driveway. We can help you do your water heater. You know, now don't get me wrong, if you have family and your family can support you, that's fine. But what I see is all of this beautiful construction built in an area where over $3 million was granted. And
I just want you to be specific about, hold on, listen, just please. I'm gonna let you finish, but I wanna.
please, just let me finish.
For the purpose of clarification, I just want you to talk about the act, because you have history that everyone here doesn't have. Name those large, those like name that money source, like give us a little bit more information.
What I'm saying right now is when the money was granted. And it was on the news, it was different community, different council. What I'm saying is the businesses and things of that nature that has been built to bring people into the communities, all of this building up, that's fine. I'm not saying you don't want to lift it up, because you mentioned the areas that need a lift. What I'm saying is how much put aside or could have been put aside to actually lift the community that was already here, because the buildings that are out and they're being built everywhere. Folks here and their families can't even afford to live in them. Right. And the reason why I bring up my mom is, like I said, I'm the youngest of 5. She's 98. When I think about the fact that if I wasn't here and I've been know what I do know, because I work with seniors all the time, where would she be? Right. I'm not knocking what the auditor's office is being told they have to do, because I work under authority too. But what I'm saying is on the front end, and I voted for you guys, by the way, but on the front end, no one took time to say, okay, this is this community. Let's set this much money aside so that we can help those that are already here to build them up while we're building up everything else. When the Family Dollar closed, you know, like I said, there were a lot of seniors that walked down there. Okay, they said, well, Walmart is within so many miles. But did somebody say, let's provide a bus or some type of transportation in that lot where Caring Clinic is, so those seniors can actually get down there to Walmart? No. But I get calls, texts, letters, and everything, as does my mother. We're interested in your house. And I'm like, I bet you are. That's all I'm saying. So it's advocates for us. And I know you're under, like I said, state authority. What can we count on you guys? Elected by folks, by the people, and you say you're here for us. What type of advocacy can we send an email to you or a letter or whatever? What can you do to help lift us up as all these folks are lifting up these areas?
That's exactly right. Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
That's all I gotta say.
First of all, thank you for this. Thank you for that question. And I have a couple things I wanted to say. The reason why I just wanted you to clarify, because as you were talking about the buckets of money, I was like going in my head and I was like, what are you talking? So there are two things that I want to say that happened and why, and because you were so spot on. About, and Ann, you would know this, about 15, 20 years ago, there was a series of bonding of our revenue sources in the city that money was specifically set aside for development of Walnut Hills, Madisonville, except particularly those two communities. Right, it's like so spot on. And why you see all of the investments, because that happened 15 to 20 years ago. I think it was more like 15 years ago. The short answer to your question is no. There was no what we're doing, community engagement around those dollars. There was no coming to the community and saying, you know, how do we work equitably? It didn't happen. Right, and there is no carve it and set outside, right? But I just want to validate that and say to you that, you know, I won't sit here and try to spin it and blow smoke. The answer is no. But we have the opportunity, and what my promise is, you know, Ms. Pearson comes to my office and gives me the business every Wednesday, right? Every Wednesday, she gives me the business. And sometimes I'd be like, oh, Ms. Pearson, leave me alone. But I'm never not going to not engage. I'm never not going to come back, because this is the transparency and what I can promise and what we can do and how we can work with like our CDCs and how we can think about our policy and getting our feedback to make sure that people are able to participate, right? That's the piece that I can stand in and hold accountable and to say, and that is why we continue to have this conversation. There is a real, in this city, lack of Black participation in economic development, right? And from a number of reasons. And to address that, one of the things my office is doing with Cincinnati Development Fund, the Cincinnati Realtors, the Port Authority, we're hosting a Black Developers Conference at the beginning of September. And when we talk about Black Developers Conference, we talk about Black folks participating in the spectrum of economic development. So not just developers, architects, construction managers, underwriters, finance, to do two things. One, identify people who have that skill set, bring them into the ecosystem. Two, identify companies that are doing the work but may be small to build capacity. And three, to open up the process of what's happening in this region, which in the next decade, between the Brent Spence Bridge, the Western Hills Viaduct, the Convention Center, the bus rapid transit lanes, we're talking between 10 and $20 billion of economic activity that's coming to this region. And so the work starts now to ensure that Black people are able to participate. So that is my promise to you, is that what happened, everything you just said was right, gospel truth, but we can change that moving forward.
But now, even the apartments there now, no one in it, unless they're children or professionals, they're building things on land like money because of the economic situation. I'm talking recent money, but nobody can live in those buildings, you know, unless they're a professional, have a higher income or something like that. And my question is okay, if it's built out here based on the economic status that was out here, how come none of the housing that was built was for folks who are here? This was to bring people in. It's bringing somebody into your own.
And to your point, when we got elected in November of 21, starting in January 22, for the first time in the city's history, we have affordable housing policies that exist, right? So when you get money from the city from our notice of funding and availability, your project has to prioritize 30 to 50% AMI. with our Affordable Housing Trust Fund of Funds with the CDF, the contract states you get the maximum amount of a forgivable loan or a low interest, a forgivable loan, which we call those grants, or a low interest loan if you build housing that's affordable for folks at 60% AMI or below. This is new things that make.
Any of those following, or any of the apartments out there falling under, because I noticed the same way with nursing.
Yeah,
The nursing facility.
we can get you a list. I can get you a list.
They,
I don't know. I don't know.
that same category, because of the community, there should be that same 20%. It's the same in nursing.
Yeah.
A certain amount has to be for Medicaid patients, even if they want private thing. With that housing, if they're gonna build it in this community with the money that came to this community, then a certain percentage of that, and I'm asking you guys that.
Well, so I was saying, I don't know before we signed,
I'm just saying.
Yes.
But it should.
I don't know what happened like, I don't know that case before we did all of the work with CDF and all those things moving forward. Okay, we have to do our time. We're gonna go Mr. Poole, and then we have, and then Ms. Pearson. Okay, Mr. Poole, Ms. Pearson, we have two more in the back, and then we have to wrap it up.
Okay.
Okay, Ms.
What
Poole.
she's saying, and the city of Cincinnati and the bank redlined it, all the poor neighborhood. They got the money and given to the contractors to build their houses, Cranley and this city council, giving that money. Now, what she's saying is people here, that older people look like they're gonna build a new house from the ground. No, they talking about the houses that they maintained when white flight took off to the suburbs and got programs. Now it's not convenient for them. They got to get up 4 o'clock to get in the city. 275, they're on there for 2 or 3 hours going home. Now the city of Cincinnati, Hamilton County, is jumping over the people that stayed here and funded the city to make sure you was flowing. But now the city is getting all these people from that walked out on the city and jumping them over the people that stayed here. The people here that own houses and property just want to be fair. But when you give Ackerman tip money, abatement and all that, give him the dollar store, give him a free lot, you ain't gave nobody here a free nothing. And that. And the thing is, with the city of Cincinnati, supposed to be helping the people, not giving it to the rich that already got money. And this abatement thing is you're still giving 15 years. I'm down there every Wednesday. You change it from a 5 to a 1 to the 5 or 4 to write the word out. You still giving your special people 15 years, even after you. I got the paperwork.
Yeah.
And I can read.
Yeah.
I might be old.
The sustained neighborhoods don't have 15 years. The lift neighborhoods have 15. But the sustained neighborhoods
15 years,
for the lift,
But-
not for the sustain.
but anybody here don't have no bunch of money to improve their house to $50,000, $200,000. You know that.
That's true. Yes, and Mr. Poole, and you've been down there through these conversations. We said this. That is true. The residential tax abatement program, and let's be very clear about this, it is not a anti-poverty abatement program, right? It is not, it was never intended to be that. It does require that someone has to be able to access the capital, which is why when we keep talking about the homestead tax exemption and those other programs, to be able to meet, the spectrum of
Who
needs.
can live on with $36,000?
Which is why we are advocating for them to reach, to lift the income piece.
But the thing is, the city should be doing more for the people in these neighborhoods and keep them in the neighborhood.
And that we agree with, and that's what we're trying to do.
Agree.
But that's what we're trying to do.
Cynthia Creed, they said, we wanted to keep the police, Cynthia Creed, to keep women, minorities are coming in, but they didn't show no effort. They just went and gave it up. So you can be mad at hell to come down there with every Wednesday for a reason, or you can just lay down. But y'all gotta do more, because I can't even talk to the mayor or the city city manager. They won't talk to us, but they'll talk to the Port Authority, DC 3C, and anybody that got money. And that's a criminal. That's why the DOJ came here and got him. It's going to be some more DOJs here.
Well, here's what I would tell you, Mr. Poole. I'm here. This is what I can offer. I'm here. I'm having a conversation. I can't speak for the mayor. I can't speak for the city manager,
Well,
but I will be here and I will be responsive.
that we need to talk to them. And then,
I will deliver the
Oh,
message.
yeah.
I will deliver the message. Okay, let's go back here and then we'll go to these.
We're gonna do lightning sound. We're gonna do lightning sound.
I hear all this rhetoric going back and forth, but what I want to say is, I think the reason people are having so much anger and frustration about this is because we heard these stories before. We heard these stories when they did the development on Madison Road, and we had an engagement. You said we didn't. We had an engagement. Our community was together before that was developed down there. We had an engagement. We got promises of housing that, you know, that affordable housing that was promised in the meeting, written in the contract. All of these things that were in that engagement with MKirk, with Ackerman, with jobs, all these people, they were contracted. So they told us they would do these things. So we believe that. So I know Bridget, I don't know you that well, but for you to come and say these things are happening, that's why you're getting what you're getting, because people have not been treated fairly and they don't believe much in the city. They just don't believe it. So unless things start turning around quickly, we're going to be in the same spot. We're going to have the same questions and we're going to come back to your door. And then what do we do? Because 15 years ago, Angela knows, we were all here when all this started. We talked about it. We signed the paper. We came to the meetings. We did all of that. And they sold us out. So, I mean, that's what, and it's gonna keep coming unless you can really prove that you're gonna do something there.
No, I hear you and I hear that. And was that the CDA that was signed or was that the quality of life? Okay. I wanted to know, and I would love to know that particular document. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, Ms. Pearson.
Mr. Reggie Harris, thanks for coming out. Ms. Bridget, thanks for coming out. And all the residents from Madisonville and other communities, thanks for coming out. But one thing, the reason why I had you to come out here, because there's a lot of angry people in our neighborhoods, especially Black neighborhoods. You know, the city had led us in a burning bush. We're in a burning bush right now. Let's overlook all the bureaucracy of politics. What is the city in our state doing to keep Black people in these neighborhoods? Do you know, we used to be 70% Black and 30% white. Now it's 70% white and 30% Black. We're no longer a Black neighborhood.
So I want to get out here. Doing textbooks out here. And we don't have that. We don't have that. No.
See, when they came to our neighborhood, we were the desert community. When they came, they had us believe they're gonna just develop and fix our community, not push us out of this neighborhood.
Right.
We don't have infrastructure. You know what infrastructure is to my ideology is when you got a grocery store, you got a drugstore, you have everything in your community that you need without being forced. Without going to Hyde Park, without going to Oakley, putting our dollars in their community. And give them we will not have economic development in our community long as we take our dollars, Reggie, Miss Bridget, out of our neighborhood. Do you know how long Hyde Park keep their dollars in their neighborhood? Why can't neighborhood? Because y'all putting the wrong infrastructure in our community. It's profiteering, not productivity. To bring up and lift up our community. But we're been, what can be done? Forget about the politics. What are y'all trying to work on now? About community. We've been here ever since what it white lights. Do you know? Took like people to get these houses in Madisonville. When I was younger, we weren't even allowed that much to live up in Madisonville. But now we got the houses, and when we did, our parents decided it was raggedy anyway. So my thing is, they have been taking money out of our community, property tax, for 70, 80 years. Where happened to the property tax gold? They never put back and invest in our community. When I go to Hyde Park, I get angry. When I go to Oak Creek, I get angry. And no one is investing nothing in our community but profiteering. Not the profit into our community, but we can walk down the street with our dog and our cat and be happy to see development. Where people that come together, commute with each other, and we can continue to build like Mr. Betty, Ms. Bridget, that's what we want in our neighborhood. We don't want to be pushed out anymore. So my thing is, I get back to the drawing board and figure out how. Now that program you're talking about, where you put in so much money, and you get a tax abatement, like you said. The average Black people income is not equated to white income in this country. Don't look at the 1%, look at the average. So I'm just saying, we need help. How can we stay in here without pushing it back? Without, listen, y'all use our own gun. Y'all use our property tax. We done gave y'all many of property tax dollars, but y'all using that to push us out. How can you save our neighborhood? Y'all come in here and say y'all gonna help us. But now we've been pushed out. That's not help. Get us out of this crisis. All the Black neighborhoods are in a crisis right now. People get pushed out of the neighborhood on the street. Y'all calling homelessness increase. Oh, that's not a balance. This found a way to keep us in our community, in our home. Like it's stuff we're trying to pay this property tax, even with the tax abatement still out. Homestead, it's still high. And then y'all need to go back and change that back again. It used to be y'all went by the age. Now y'all still trying to train us for money.
That's why Councilmember Harris said to contact your state rep, because again, the homestead exemption. Yeah, and that's something that I was fighting for 6 years in the state house, was to increase the homestead exemption. Representative Cedric Denson is the state rep from Madisonville.
Yeah, we contact Rep. Denson.
For Senator Catherine Ingram.
But then y'all, too. Y'all can't do the deal.
Oh, so we are totally working. And here's the thing I want to just say with Ms. Pearson, and we have these conversations all the time. Here, I hear the assignment, like I hear it and it's noted. And we're at the beginning of our relationship, right? You don't know me from Adam, so you're gonna know me by my actions, right? So heard, right? And we will continue to do what I need to do to build that relationship. But I will share with some things that we are doing for the community. So we vote on our budget next week. The mayor has proposed, we engaged in a year-long community engagement piece around financial empowerment. There are 3 programs that we are going to vote on and propose, and I feel pretty strongly about them coming. One is medical debt forgiveness. We set aside $1.5 million to forgive the medical debt for up to 20,000 Cincinnati residents, because we know medical debt forgiveness is medical debt is a real barrier, right, to be able to be financially prosperous. We also are doing child savings accounts for families to be able to invest in their children. So $375,000 for child savings accounts for every school, for every kid that is preschool promise eligible. And then we're doing a guaranteed income pilot. So I just wanted to share with you, and we'll go deeper, but we really are like tangible policies that are people-centered. But here's what we have to do. We can only do one more question, and then we have to go one more question. This gentleman in the green has had his hand up forever. We're gonna do his question. And then
I'm gonna say one more thing while they're taking him the microphone. Actually, the county auditors from across the state of Ohio have also been advocating for an expansion of the homestead exemption. But the folks who serve in the majority in the legislature said that the state can't afford it.
Like to thank,
One second, we have a question. Yes, sir, go ahead.
I'd like to thank both of you for coming out tonight. My question is for the auditor. Along Madison Road, the last few years, I have a small commercial property. I'm self-employed. There are some commercial properties that were purchased through the Opportunity Fund, which is used to offset capital gains. I'm not sure that that is an arm's length negotiation between the buyer and the seller. There are also properties that were purchased with public money. Some or most of them were extensively remodeled with public money. Do those purchase prices get incorporated when determining what the value of surrounding properties are? Because I think those purchase prices might be inflated.
Thank you for the question. So I will answer your question by saying sometimes the best thing that you could do, sir, is if you fill out one of these info request forms. I'd like to look up your property so we can make sure to give you the information on that property to make sure that you have the most accurate information. I will say one thing that we really strive to do with the auditor's office is to provide people the most accurate and transparent information that we can. And that usually comes from being able to look up your specific parcel of property so we can give you the information for that. And if people have questions, again, fill out this info. Share this with members of our team so that we can get back with you.
Okay, all right. I don't know. I will, so we're gonna end this publicly. I'll stay around for a few minutes for folks who did not get there because we gotta break down and set everyone's time. Let's continue to do this. I'll be here, as you know, like I said, Ms. Pearson's in my office every Wednesday. You know, she is the Pearson's advocate. We'll continue to do the work. We'll be here. We'll have the hard conversations, and we'll move forward. This was only supposed to be for 1 hour, yes. You know, so lesson learned, right? Like,
Thank you.